by making films, and he really had a lot of energy, and I guess there's the other Stevie Wonder, not the one who was here tonight, but
Michael J. Fox almost died on a movie set, and nobody talks about it. During Back to the Future the 3, a hanging scene went horribly wrong when the rope cut off blood flow to his brain. He dangled unconscious for several seconds before the director realized what happened. But this brush with death was nothing compared to the secret battle he was already fighting. By then, he was working 18-hour days while hiding a devastating diagnosis from everyone. The pressure nearly killed him, in more ways than one. The truth about those years would change everything. Michael Andrew Fox was born on June 9, 1961, in Edmonton, Alberta. His father was a career soldier in the Royal Canadian Corps of Signals, and his mother worked as a payroll clerk and had a quiet love for acting. His childhood carried both the strict order of military life and the spark of creativity from his mother. Growing up as an army brat meant constant movement. Because of his father's 25-year career, the family packed up and moved again and again, living in places like North Bay and Chilliwack. By the time Michael was a pre-teen, he had already lived in 5 different cities. Always being the new kid taught him how to adapt quickly, read situations fast, and use humor to make friends. It wasn't an easy life, but it shaped the quick wit he later became known for. When his father retired in 1971, the family finally settled in Burnaby, British Columbia. For the first time, Michael had a stable home, just as he was stepping into the years that would define him. Like many Canadian boys, Michael first dreamed of playing professional ice hockey. He poured all of his energy into the sport, inspired by stars like Bobby Orr. He was fast and determined, giving everything to the game. But as his teammates grew taller and stronger, Michael stayed small. He eventually stopped growing at just 5 feet 4 inches, a height that made competing at a professional level nearly impossible. It was a crushing blow, forcing him to let go of his NHL dream and look for a new path where size didn't matter. That path appeared in a surprising place. He had been teaching himself guitar and playing in garage bands, but in high school he discovered drama class. In 1976, at the age of 15, a teacher noticed his natural comedic timing and encouraged him to audition for a new sitcom on the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. The show, Leo and Me, needed a small actor to play a 10-year-old boy. The very thing that ended his hockey dream, his size, suddenly became an advantage. He landed the role, and with it, his first professional paycheck. At just 15 years old, Michael walked into that audition not knowing it would change his life. The producers were surprised that a teenager with almost no professional experience could handle the part, but his youthful look and natural ability won them over. Leo and Me aired for 2 seasons, and Michael played Jamie, the younger brother in the family. It was modest work, but for a teenager in the late 1970s, it meant independence and the beginning of a real career. The success of Leo and Me quickly opened doors. Between 1978 and 1979, Michael became one of Canada's most recognizable young actors. He appeared in television movies such as Letters from Frank, where he played a troubled teenager coping with his father's alcoholism. Casting directors began requesting him by name, something rare for someone so young. He earned about $1,500 per episode, which in 1979 would equal around $6,000 today. By age 17, he was being featured in Canadian magazines as a rising star, a level of recognition that usually took years to achieve. In 1979, he took a role that changed the way he saw acting. He joined the stage production of The Shadow Box at the Phoenix Theatre in Vancouver, playing Mark, a young man dying of cancer. The Pulitzer Prize-winning play dealt with heavy themes of mortality, and Michael, only 18 at the time, was the youngest in the cast by nearly a decade. The run lasted 6 weeks, with 8 shows each week, and he was paid just $200 per week, a sharp drop from television pay. But what he gained was far more important. The critics praised him for his vulnerability and emotional depth, qualities they didn't expect from someone his age. It was during this play that Michael realized acting could be more than just a job. He discovered it could be an art, something that demanded every ounce of honesty and courage. That same year, at just 18, Michael made the boldest choice of his young life. Despite having offers in Canada, including a starring role in a new show that would have paid $2,000 per episode for 22 episodes, he decided to leave it all behind and head to Los Angeles. He had only $500 in savings, no connections in the industry, and parents who worried that he was throwing away a stable career. His agent warned him that Hollywood didn't usually welcome unknowns, especially not someone his height. But Michael was determined. He found a tiny studio apartment in West Hollywood for $200 a month and lived on bologna sandwiches and generic cereal. He dreamed of stardom, but the city gave him a harsh welcome. At first, he managed to get a few auditions, but by 1980, the phone had stopped ringing. His bills piled up until he owed $10,000 on credit cards. Agents stopped calling, and his landlord threatened eviction. At one point, he survived an entire week on just $1.50, buying nothing more than day-old bread. In 1981, things got so bad that he sold his sectional couch piece by piece just to pay the rent. The first section brought him $50. Then he sold another. During this time, he auditioned for more than 100 roles and failed to land any. The constant rejection left him depressed and thinking about quitting. By the summer of 1980, he was flat broke, a reminder that Hollywood rejected about 90% of newcomers at the time. Still, these years hardened him in ways he didn't yet understand. His first film break came with Midnight Madness, which opened on February 8, 1980. He played Scott Larson, a bratty college kid who appeared for less than 5 minutes. The job paid him $2,000 for 2 weeks of work, just enough to keep his $500 rent covered for a short while. The film itself, a Disney comedy, cost $4 million to make, but earned only $2.9 million. During the summer of 1979, while filming, he was so underfed that he fainted one day after eating nothing but rice for days. He had beaten 200 other hopefuls for the role, but the part led to no new offers. He used the check to pay down $500 in debts, yet by December 1980, he was broke again. He later admitted this role felt like his lowest point, calling it his rock-bottom intro. Around the same time, he had to change his name. When he joined the Screen Actors Guild in 1979, he discovered another actor named Michael Fox had already claimed the name. On November 15, 1979, he chose the letter J, inspired by actor Michael J. Pollard from Bonnie and Clyde. He avoided using his real middle initial A, fearing headlines that would joke, "Michael, a fox." He even thought of using Michael J. Fox, but simplified it to Michael J. Fox. The official change cost him $100 in fees, money he barely had. He signed the papers on December 1, 1979, and the name first appeared in the credits of Midnight Madness. Years later, he said he avoided Michael Andrew Fox because it sounded too formal and pretentious. What he didn't know then was that this quick choice would become one of the most famous names in Hollywood. The call that changed his life came on August 20, 1982. At the time, he was 21 years old, $30,000 in debt, and close to eviction. He had even begun selling his last belongings to survive. The phone bill was 2 months overdue, and he nearly missed the call when agent Bob Schulenberg told him he had landed the role of Alex P. Keaton in Family Ties. He had first auditioned in May 1982, so nervous that he nearly ruined it. A callback on June 15th turned everything around, and he beat 500 other actors, including Matthew Broderick. The part paid $5,000 an episode, earning him $100,000 for the first season and saving him from total collapse. The show premiered on September 22, 1982, and by 1983 was pulling 30 million viewers each week. He later admitted in a 1990 interview that he cried with relief that day, convinced he was just days away from giving up and returning to Canada. The sitcom ran until 1989. won him 3 Emmy Awards in a row from 1986 to 1988, and became the launchpad that led to Back to the Future in 1985, which earned $381 million worldwide. That one call, made around 3 p.m., turned everything around. His character, Alex P. Keaton, was never meant to be the star of Family Ties. The show had been pitched as a story about liberal, ex-hippie parents and their kids. But after only 4 episodes, audiences were fixated on the conservative teenage Republican with a briefcase, and the writers shifted the show toward him. NBC executive Brandon Tartikoff even argued at first that Fox should be replaced, saying he was too short and not the kind of face that would ever appear on a lunchbox. Fox later had a custom lunchbox made that said, "To Brandon, this is for you to put your crow in." By the time the show ended on May 14, 1989, Fox had become one of America's most beloved TV stars. The awards followed quickly. Fox won 3 Emmys back-to-back from 1986 to 1988, a rare feat at such a young age. He added a Golden Globe in 1989 for Best Actor in a Comedy. The same year Family Ties ended. The show itself collected 24 awards and 43 nominations across its 7-year run. Fox was still in his 20s when he achieved this level of recognition, becoming one of television's youngest and brightest stars. The timing of his character fit perfectly with the 1980s. Alex P. Keaton came to symbolize Reagan-era America, with his obsession for economics, Wall Street, and 3-piece suits. Set in Columbus, Ohio, during Ronald Reagan's presidency, the show captured the clash between baby boomer parents and their ambitious, conservative children. Fox's character became such a symbol of the decade that commentators were still using "What would Alex P. Keaton do?" in policy debates years later. Back in November 1984, the first actor cast as Marty McFly was Eric Stoultz. He had recently won praise for his role in Mask and seemed like a strong choice. But after more than a month of filming, director Robert Zemeckis realized something was wrong. Stoultz was taking the role in a darker, more serious direction that didn't fit the playful energy he wanted. On January 10, 1985, Zemeckis delivered the difficult news himself. Stoultz was replaced by Michael J. Fox, though he still received his full salary. The studio had already spent a fortune on filming. In fact, only one brief shot of Stoultz remained in the final film, the moment when Marty punches Biff in 1955. Zemeckis later admitted firing Stoultz was the hardest moment of his career, even though he believed Stoultz was a brilliant actor. The decision put Fox under an exhausting schedule few in Hollywood could endure. From mid-January through mid-March 1985, he spent his days filming Family Ties at Paramount, from 10 in the morning until 6 in the evening, then rushed to the Back to the Future set at Universal, working from 6:30 at night until 2:30 in the morning. Fridays were even more punishing. He rehearsed Family Ties from noon until 5, performed 2 live tapings for the studio audience, then started filming again at 10 p.m., often working until sunrise. The crew sometimes had to physically carry the 24-year-old actor to bed. He was so sleep-deprived that he once looked for a camcorder on the Family Ties set, only to realize it was actually a prop from the film. This routine lasted 2 full months until Family Ties wrapped in April 1985. A few years later, while filming Back to the Future Part 3, Fox had a terrifying brush with death. During a hanging scene on the gallows, he first stood on a safety box, hidden from the camera. The problem was that the effect didn't look real. Determined to make the scene convincing, Fox insisted on trying it without the box, using his hand to keep the rope from tightening. On the 3rd take, he miscalculated, and the rope cut off the blood flow to his brain. He lost consciousness and dangled helplessly for several seconds until Robert Zemeckis realized what was happening and ordered him cut down. Fox later said the director's quick action saved his life. Without it, he could have suffered permanent brain damage or worse. Despite the struggles, the trilogy became one of the most loved franchises in film history. The original movie, released in 1985, earned nearly $400 million worldwide on a budget of just $19 million. In 2007, the United States Library of Congress chose it for preservation in the National Film Registry, calling it culturally and historically significant. Fox didn't just play Marty McFly. He also portrayed Marty's son and even his ancestor Seamus, showing his range. The phrases, the DeLorean, and even the number 1.21 gigawatts became part of everyday culture. Fox compared the film's timelessness to The Wizard of Oz, pointing out that children never thought of it as an old movie. Even decades later, the trilogy continues to inspire new fans, with reunions and charity events keeping the spirit alive. The film's success launched Fox into instant stardom. Only a month later, Teen Wolf was released, turning the summer of 1985 into the defining moment of his career. More hits followed, including The Secret of My Success, Light of Day, Casualties of War, and Doc Hollywood. In 1991, he even hosted Saturday Night Live. During the late 80s and early 90s, he became one of Hollywood's most in-demand actors. His success continued with the sitcom Spin City, which aired from 1996 to 2001 and earned him 3 Golden Globe Awards. The trilogy had given him the foundation for a career that would make him a household name across the world. Fox's ability to move from lighthearted comedy to serious drama shocked critics and audiences. In 1989, he starred alongside Sean Penn in Casualties of War, a harrowing Vietnam War drama based on a true story from 1966. Fox played Private Erickson, a soldier who watches his squad kidnap and assault a Vietnamese woman. His performance was so powerful that Roger Ebert called it his best dramatic work. The year before, he had starred in Bright Lights, Big City, as a fact-checker spiraling into cocaine addiction, delivering a drunken monologue that Ebert described as the finest work of his career. These roles showed he was far more than a teen idol and capable of handling deep, complex material. His career expanded again when he moved into voice acting. In 1993, he voiced Chance, the bulldog in Disney's Homeward Bound, The Incredible Journey. The film was a massive hit, and Fox's lively voice work won over audiences. That success led to his role as Stuart Little in 1999, which earned over $300 million worldwide. Voice acting became especially important later, as it allowed him to continue working while his health declined. He also voiced characters in Atlantis, The Lost Empire in 2001, proving his versatility yet again. By this point, Fox had become a true box office king. The Secret of My Success brought in $110 million, while Doc Hollywood made $54.8 million. Even Teen Wolf, released around the same time as Back to the Future, earned $80 million worldwide. Altogether, his films grossed an incredible $1.82 billion, ranking him 144th among all actors at the time. Between 1985 and 1991, he starred in 10 feature films while completing 7 seasons of Family Ties, a workload that few could match. But behind the success, Fox's health was quietly slipping away. In 1991, while filming Doc Hollywood, Michael J. Fox noticed a twitch in his left pinky finger. At just 29 years old, he was told by a neurologist that he had early-onset Parkinson's disease. The diagnosis shook him completely. Within 6 months, the tremor spread from his pinky to his whole hand. He admitted later that, during those early years, he relied heavily on alcohol. He called himself definitely an alcoholic, drinking to escape the fear of what was happening to his body. Sometimes he would spend hours in the bathtub with his head under the water, feeling he needed to suffer and fall as low as possible before facing the truth. On the outside, he continued to shine as Hollywood's energetic star. Between 1991 and 1998, he became skilled at hiding his condition from cameras and co-workers. He carefully timed his dopamine medication, swallowing pills like Halloween Smarties, so he could look steady during scenes. On set, he often held coffee cups or briefcases to disguise his trembling hands. He leaned against desks and walls to anchor himself, forcing his body into positions that looked natural but caused him constant pain. No one suspected how much he was struggling. A year after his diagnosis, in 1992, Fox reached a breaking point. The combination of drinking, depression, and worsening symptoms brought him to what he described as rock bottom. With the support of his wife, Tracy Pollan, and their young children, he made a life-changing decision to stop drinking. He has remained sober for more than 30 years. He admitted that the first days of sobriety were brutal because without alcohol, he could no longer hide from his fears. Pollan stood by him and pushed him to confront reality, and that choice marked the start of his journey toward acceptance. During the years that followed, Fox began shifting his career without revealing why. After finishing films like Doc Hollywood in 1991 and The Frighteners in 1996, he moved toward television. In 1996, he accepted the lead role in ABC's Spin City. But before signing, he told network president Robert Iger and DreamWorks head Jeffrey Katzenberg about his diagnosis. He explained it could get very bad, or maybe not. They told him to move forward anyway. He chose television because it allowed him to stay in one place instead of traveling for movie shoots. By the second season, his symptoms had advanced enough that he knew he could not keep the secret much longer. On December 7, 1998, Fox appeared on the cover of People magazine and revealed to the world that he had Parkinson's. He had hidden it for 7 years. Paparazzi had started to take photos showing his symptoms, which forced him to make the announcement. At 37 years old, he was nervous, but also relieved. His doctor told him he might only remain functional for another 10 years. The article, written by Todd Gold, shared his story in a way that also raised awareness for Parkinson's research. The response was immediate. Fans, celebrities, and strangers flooded him with messages of support. Instead of damaging his career, the news brought him closer to people and broke down stigma about the disease. Spin City became a massive success. The show ran for 6 seasons and earned Fox 1 Emmy Award in 2000, 3 Golden Globe Awards in 1998, 1999, and 2000, and 2 Screen Actors Guild Awards in 1999 and 2000. He served as executive producer and continued acting even as his symptoms grew worse. During the second season, he revealed his condition to his castmates after undergoing a 4-hour brain surgery to manage symptoms. Audiences embraced him, and the show thrived despite his health challenges. By January 2000, the physical strain became too much. Fox explained that he felt his face hardening and his movements growing stiff. Viewers could see him holding onto desks or walls in later episodes. On January 19, 2000, he announced he was leaving Spin City. His co-stars were devastated. Barry Bostwick cried in interviews, wishing him luck in his fight against the disease. Charlie Sheen was brought in to replace him for the last 2 seasons. Fox made 3 final guest appearances to give fans closure. When Michael J. Fox launched the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's research in 2000, he was just 39 years old. He had already been secretly living with the disease for 9 years, after being diagnosed in 1991 at the age of 29. What started as one man's mission quickly grew into a powerhouse that reshaped how Parkinson's research was done around the world. By 2006, The Guardian called it the largest private funder of Parkinson's research. Unlike most medical research groups, the foundation kept close control of its projects, giving money directly to scientists it believed had the best chance of finding a cure. The New York Times even described it as the most credible voice on Parkinson's research in the world. By 2022, the foundation was funding more Parkinson's research than the entire United States government, an achievement few would have thought possible when it all began. The scale of its fundraising has been remarkable. As of 2023, the foundation had raised over $2 billion for Parkinson's projects, making it the single largest nonprofit supporter of research into the disease worldwide. In 2024 alone, community fundraising events reached a record-breaking $53 million in just 1 year. That summer, 4 men including one with Parkinsons, rode 2,800 miles from California to Hawaii over the course of 41 days in the Team Human-Powered Potential Challenge. Their effort inspired donations that added up to $41 million, boosted by an anonymous donor who agreed to triple match every contribution. Even small campaigns produced enormous results. In 2016, a Nike raffle brought in $6.75 million from just 2 auctions in Hong Kong and London. By 2023, the foundation's revenue stood at $316 million, with $303 million coming from private donations. This level of private support for a single disease is something the world had never seen before. In 2023, the foundation helped deliver what many called the biggest Parkinson's breakthrough since the discovery of levodopa in 1967. Through the Parkinson's Progression Markers Initiative, a project it began in 2010, researchers discovered a way to detect the disease with 93% accuracy. The test, known as the alpha-synuclein seeding amplification assay, identifies abnormal alpha-synuclein proteins in spinal fluid. These proteins, often called the Parkinson's protein, could be found not only in people already diagnosed, but also in those at high risk, who had not yet shown symptoms. The results, published in The Lancet Neurology in April 2023, immediately changed the way clinical trials were run, making them faster, cheaper, and more effective. In September 2024, the FDA issued a letter of support endorsing the biomarker for research and clinical trials. This discovery came after decades of effort, millions in funding, and thousands of volunteers willing to step forward for the study. Even as his symptoms grew worse, Fox returned to acting in 2000, focusing on roles where he could work his Parkinson's symptoms into the characters he played. The choice paid off. He won his 5th Emmy Award for his performance as Dwight in the show Rescue Me and earned 6 more nominations for his role as Lewis Canning on The Good Wife. He also appeared on Curb Your Enthusiasm, Scrubs, and Boston Legal. In 2009, he produced and hosted an ABC special called Adventures of an Incurable Optimist, which took him across the United States, India, and Bhutan, and earned an Emmy nomination. His last major acting role came in The Good Fight in 2020 before he announced his retirement. After 5 years away from television, Fox is set to return in 2025 with a guest appearance on Apple TV+'s Shrinking, a reunion with his Spin City co-creator, Bill Lawrence. Fox also built a remarkable literary career. His first book, Lucky Man, became a #1 New York Times bestseller and made him one of the most respected voices in memoir writing. He followed it with 3 more bestsellers: Always Looking Up, A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Future, and No Time Like the Future in 2020. 3 of his audiobooks earned Grammy nominations, with Always Looking Up winning Best Spoken Word Album in 2010. His books told the story of how he faced his illness while holding on to his optimism, though his most recent memoir was more candid about the difficulties that had nearly pushed him to give up on that outlook altogether. He described not just the fight against Parkinson's, but also surgeries, falls, and the daily challenge of simply moving forward. On January 4, 2025, Fox received the Presidential Medal of Freedom from President Joe Biden at the White House. He was one of only 19 people to receive the honor that year, joining an elite group of leaders, activists, and Nobel Prize winners. The White House praised his resilience and optimism and called him a fearless advocate for those living with Parkinson's. By then, his foundation had already raised more than $1.75 billion since its founding. In his speech, Fox said he was grateful to share the recognition with patients, families, and researchers who were working together to bring an end to Parkinson's. The ceremony was also attended by Denzel Washington, Bono, and Anna Wintour, among others. Later that year, Fox surprised the world again by returning to acting after 5 years. In May 2025, he joined the cast of Shrinking for Season 3, marking his first television role since The Good Fight. in 2020. The role held personal meaning since the show had already introduced a character with Parkinsons, played by Harrison Ford. On set, the cast and crew took every precaution to support him, knowing the challenges he faced with movement and speech. For Fox, the decision was about more than acting. It was proof that Parkinsons would not decide his limits. In October 2025, Fox will release his 5th book, Future Boy, Back to the Future, and My Journey Through the Space-Time Continuum. Timed for the 40th anniversary of Back to the Future, it focuses on the single year of 1985, when he starred as Marty McFly at night, while filming Family Ties during the day. He described that period as a time when time went rogue and took me with it. The memoir includes new interviews with cast members and offers stories that have never been told before. Written with Nell Fortenberry, who also serves on his foundation's board, Fox described it as less of a memoir and more of a reflection on identity and purpose. Now, at 64 years old, Fox has become open about the challenges of living with Parkinson's for more than 3 decades. He admitted recently that it is getting harder every day. Still, he has not lost his humor. When his wife Tracy Pollan shared a birthday message on Instagram, Fox replied that he wasn't getting older, only more grateful. He has spoken candidly about falling often and losing mobility, while close friend Ryan Reynolds described him as someone who falls because he is unafraid to fly. Despite his health struggles, Fox remains at the center of groundbreaking research, including a $100 million project focused on identifying biological markers for Parkinson's.